In this video, I'll show a different technique on wrapping emerald greens to protect them from deer. In a prior video, I showed how I use burlap to individually wrap each emerald green. If you want to see that video, I'll put a link in the corner of this video as well as in the description. Wrapping each emerald green can be a very tedious task, especially if you have a lot of them. Another method is to use wooden stakes around the emerald greens and then wrapping around the stakes, which gives you the ability to wrap a larger section at a time. I'll be using two types of wooden stakes for this process, the one being an 8-foot tall wooden stake that you can find at most Lowe's stores, and this one is typically used for supporting trees or other plants, so it's pretty sturdy. It has a pointed end on one side and on the other has a flat side so that you can easily hammer it into the ground. I'll also be using 5-foot tall pine wood stakes to act as a middle support, and I'll show you how all this comes together in the video. I'll work on this section of emerald greens for the video. There's about 10 of them and they are just over 6 feet tall. Now if you look closely, you can see that the middle section of these emerald greens have definitely been chewed through by the deer. That's because last year I didn't get a chance to wrap them before winter and the deer totally took advantage of it. Luckily, they grew back a good amount this summer, but we'll need another year or so before they are back to what they were looking like before. So for this section of trees, I'll start by hammering in these 8-foot stakes about every 2 to 3 feet using a mallet like I'm doing here. As I'm hammering in the stakes, I'm checking to make sure they are level. This is important because it'll prevent them from leaning to one side. I'm making sure to give enough space between the stakes and the emerald greens because I want to make sure the hedges have enough space for airflow. In between the tall 8-foot stakes, I'm putting in these smaller 5-foot pine stakes. As mentioned earlier, these will act as a middle support for the burlap. After I've gotten all the stakes hammered in, I'll start the process of wrapping these emerald greens. Now the burlap I'll be using is one that you can pick up from Home Depot. It's from a company called Vigoro, and it comes in rolls of 3 feet by 24 feet long. I like this burlap because the holes in the burlap are not too small, and this is perfect to allow for proper airflow. It's also good because it can easily dry if it gets wet. To attach the burlap to the stakes, I'll be using a staple gun and stainless steel staples. It's important to use stainless steel so that it doesn't rust through the winter. I'll start by stapling the burlap onto the first post along the top, ensuring it stays on. Then I'm going to work my way to the next 8-foot tall post and staple the burlap onto that. I'll work my way around until I get the burlap stapled onto all of the tall 8-foot posts. I'll then go around and staple the middle sections onto the 5-foot tall pine stakes. These stakes basically act as a support so that the burlap doesn't sag in between the tall stakes. Now that I've gotten the top portion wrapped, I'll go through and wrap the bottom portion of the bushes. I'm going to make sure there's enough overlap between the top and bottom sections. It's the same process as before where I'll staple onto the 8-foot tall posts first and make my way around the emerald greens. Once done, I'll go back through and staple onto the shorter 5-foot posts. As an added security measure, I'm going to take some twine and wrap the corners of the burlap onto the posts. This will ensure that the burlap doesn't rip from the staples later on. So here's the finished wrapping. You can see there's plenty of airflow and transparency. This should be enough to protect the emerald greens or bushes from deer. If you find that the deer are particularly aggressive and making their way through the covering, you can always add another layer of this burlap. Hope this video helps you out. By following these simple steps, you can give your emerald greens and other bushes the protection and care they need to thrive. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more great content.